Well, later I'll have to show you a picture of my new doggo. I got a new doggo.
This time.
Got another dog.
Can I go back out there and cross the website because it's still really disappointing?
Yeah, just remind me later.
You got another dog.
Well, you might have seen. I mean, I've had her this summer. We got her once we were settled in our house. So we're like neighbors now.
Yeah.
It's like.
Wait, you live on?
RR.
Yeah.
Dominic lives there.
Probably. People yell stuff all the time. Like, because now that they know it's us, like they just
What's
yell.
up, me?
Like,
Only once.
only once I yelled. Oh god.
I don't know why every time.
Oh, she's safe. She's all tired.
I put something on the neighbors in the morning. Not just that. It's like I wake up like at 4 in the morning for work here. Across the road.
Yeah.
And it's like lights on. I don't think he hears my truck, but I just feel like that person.
They didn't put a cone on her head though.
Oh.
They
Well,
said
she
she
starts.
was really good about it.
Okay. She starts licking stuff. You gotta put a phone on her.
Yeah.
No.
I do have like a inflatable cone, so it's not like this. So it's like more like a pillow around it a little bit. So if you, I could probably find it.
Yeah, it's a cone.
Do you need a staple or yeah?
No, just
I think we put a T-shirt on our dogs when they got fixed too, just to kind of keep her.
Are you saying that's actually kind of fun?
I don't know.
What?
Okay.
Putting the t-shirt on your dog. It's
Why
kind
would
of
I
fun
know?
letting them struggle while walking.
No.
Okay. So we're going to talk about fractions and mixed numbers today and kind of converting back and forth. Again, I'm going to let you guys do a lot with your calculator. However, I don't want you to be completely or completely brain dead if you run into, yes.
Can I borrow one?
Okay, so yeah, if you want to borrow one, you can grab one, but just make sure it comes back. Again, I really ask you guys start bringing one that you'd be using on a test. I don't have enough, well, we're probably close between our two rooms of having enough for everybody, but the ones I do have are really nice for fractions, so having one that you're comfortable with for fractions is going to be what we're looking for here. So that's going to be really important. Your cell phone is probably not very good at doing fractions with addition and subtraction. I think it's kind of a little bit wonky and hard to figure out. So again, using the skills you have, but also, I feel like we can't get anywhere.
Soiled it.
Sorry, this is really like the most convoluted day ever.
Everyone's dropping stuff. today.
We're not okay.
Each time I feel like I get into a rhythm.
Nobody's ever okay.
Okay. Okay, so a fraction, you guys have seen a fraction before. You might not even know exactly what it means or how you define it. It's part of a whole. However, that's kind of confusing because there can be more parts than the whole. So that's, there's kind of a goofy part of that when we talk about improper fractions. But a fraction is part of a whole. And the way they're written, the numerator and the denominator, that's how a fraction is written. So this is going to be the top of a fraction. And then the bottom of the fraction. I'm not usually super picky about using proper vocabulary, but numerator and denominator I don't think are too outlandish to ask you to know those words, at least recognize them. So I know they're not words you use like in everyday speaking, but like I use the word numerator that you wouldn't be like, what in the world is she talking about? So just that that that's a word that I probably will use more often than just saying the top of the fraction. It kind of depends probably on how quickly I'm talking or something like that. So numerator, denominator, top, bottom fraction. So I saw a little easy kind of graphic, like if that helps, and those are ready. Those are my initials, so pull down in here. There you go. Numerator over denominator. There's a little mnemonic device for you.
It's like if you were gifted by God.
Right, I was meant to be here. Alright. Now, a proper fraction is the kind of fraction we're used to seeing. Like if you went down to the elementary school, those kids would understand proper fractions. That's like when you say, how much of a cookie did you eat? I ate 3/4 of the cookie, or whatever it happens to be. So the proper fraction is where the smaller number is on top. So if I wanted to teach fractions to a little person, I would probably draw something like this, and I would color it in and say, how much did we eat? And they would say 3 out of 4. How much is left? 3 out of 4. So that's a proper fraction. That's what we're used to seeing. But a lot of times in math, algebra, more upper level math, we deal a lot with improper fractions, and that seems really hard to understand when you're still trying to picture it as the little pie pieces. It's kind of a weird. So this case, the larger number is on top. So. And I'll show you what this kind of looks like then as an example here. Let's kind of stay a little bit easier. Let's do 3/2. This is the parts over the whole. So what they mean by that is the slices are halves. And if I had 3 out of 2 of them, I would have eaten more than a whole. So 3 out of 2 of those parts. So, like I said, you guys have known these before, you've seen them before, but just being comfortable with them and not freaking out when you see them. Because I know fractions aren't typically if I had you make a list of things you like in math, fractions aren't typically on people's top of their list. Mixed number is basically another way to write an improper fraction. That's when you say this happens from time to time. You ate 4 whole cookies and maybe a half. Who eats a half of a cookie? I don't know. But it's wholes and parts. So it's a whole number and parts. So it's a whole number and a proper fraction together. And I'll actually use this example right up here to help me with that. The whole, there would be 1 whole pizza, apple, whatever that is, and then there's a half. So this is the same fraction as that. This is just the way we choose to write it. Now in everyday life, the mixed number is kind of preferred. If I was doing a recipe at home and I was trying to I was doubling some recipe and I found out I needed 3 halves of a cup of sugar, what does that mean? I'd rather talk about 1 and 1/2 of a cup. That makes more sense in everyday life. Whereas in math, a lot of times the improper fractions are easier to work with. If I'm going to be multiplying and dividing with it, I like the improper fractions better. Your calculator typing an improper fraction is easier than a mixed number, but at the same time, kind of getting comfortable with either one is going to be helpful. So we'll talk about each of those today and kind of make sure that we're kind of comfortable going back and forth. All right, so we're going to convert these. Now this is a place I probably should have tried this before standing in front of you, is I'd like you to type this. Do you know how to type a mixed number into your calculator?
Yes. I do.
Do you know how to type this into your calculator? So 3 4/5. Do you know how to type that? And again, Ryan, I would really suggest grabbing something other than your phone. Your calculator, your phone probably is not very good at this. There's a calculator here that's not good at.
Yeah. You know how to use this.
Oh.
Okay.
And you basically just type that after each part. So I think most of you guys, or a bunch of you guys, have a button like that. And what you do is you type the 3, then hit this button, type the 4, then hit this button, then the 5, and it's gonna write it kind of like, it's gonna look like, I think, something like that, right? Is that what it looks like, sort of? Does someone else need a calculator? Kat, is yours okay with fractions?
No.
I know you're probably pretty good with them, but
I'm alright with you though.
yeah, but we're gonna be multiplying and dividing, and you might want,
Thank you, Miss Nora.
thanks.
Everyone else good?
No. Yeah.
I feel like I should pull out the whole, Ryan, do you have a phone call that you need to take during class today? Has anyone ever heard that story? He answered his phone during my class. For a job interview.
That was his job. Have you ever heard that?
Yeah, and I was like, maybe you should tell them you should call him back. We're kind of busy right now.
Later that
He
night.
did it, he said, when I'm in
Yeah,
class.
I was like, this is a bad time in class. Call you back.
And then he called up, I'm like, well, no, don't say that.
Right, and like, just don't pick up the phone. Like, let it go to voice. I mean, there's.
I got hired.
Right, I know. That was the thing. Then he got the job.
Later that night, he told me, he was like, yeah, my phone everything this time.
I was like, what are you doing? No, don't answer it. I was like, I mean, I've been teaching for 20 years, and I think that might be up there. And like, I mean, I've had like Jared Mitchell tell me I'm gonna call my mom, and like it was like, you know, like the.
Yeah. Working ever since like 8 years.
Oh my god. I just,
The
I
funniest part was when never he said, it's fantastic.
Don't tell him that. You're never gonna get that job. Sure enough, they really needed you. Okay, so did you all figure out how to punch this in? You got that? I know the yellow ones work a little more nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to hit the second button.
Yeah. All right, you all figure out how to put that in there?
Yeah.
Now, to be honest, that's not going to really help you, I don't think, much with converting this to an improper fraction. So, but I just wanted you guys to make sure we all had a calculator for moving forward here. Does anyone know how to switch this over? How do I make that back into an improper fraction? Do you know? Yeah, so you multiply the denominator, so that bottom number, by the whole number. Does it switch it on yours?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I was kind of trying to ask. Some of your calculators might actually just convert it back and forth. So press enter. So that's what so if your calculator does this, I'm not asking you guys to do this by hand. If your calculator is not, then we have to know how to do it. Does that make sense? So you have to kind of, so it's denominator times the whole number. And then we're going to add the top, or add the numerator. So if your calculator does it, it's fine. Just make sure you know how to do it in your calculator. So I'm going to do 5 times 3 is 15 plus 4. And that goes over the denominator. I don't need to call it old. So that would be 19 over 5. If your calculator does that for you, awesome. I'm not going to take your calculator away from you in this class. Like, that's not.
Yeah, you will.
Only yours.
Wow.
Okay. Everybody else good. So being able to make that conversion back and forth, however your calculator needs to do that, I think in the other way your calculator might help you. We'll kind of see. That's kind of what I want you guys to test with me. So now if you want to try this one, the 2 and 1 ninth, see if you guys can rewrite that. Again, if you use your calculator or do it the way we just talked about. I don't want you to see a number like that and not know how to use it another way. So can you manipulate it? Can your calculator manipulate it? Do you know how to switch it around? Would you be able to do that on a test? All right. Strangely enough, we end up with like the same number. Okay, so 2 times 9 is 18, plus 1. So we get 19 over 9. This is a lot easier than drawing this out a whole bunch of times to kind of see what this looks like. So 19 over 9 would be our improper fraction. So this one's called improper, that one's called mixed. So being able to convert back and forth. Okay? Now going the other way. 9 over 2, does your calculator switch that back for you? I don't know what it does, so that's why I'm asking. Depends on your calculator. What does 9 over 2 do to you? I have a weird one. This is a strange calculator. All right, and this one, so that one stays the same on the yellow ones. And now some of you guys might just, like 9 halves is not a terrible one. 73 over 4 is pretty bad. So we have to switch this back, be able to convert back the other way. So I'll talk to you guys about how to do that, like especially if your calculator doesn't do it for you. This is an easy example, definitely tougher. So we have to ask ourselves, how many times does the 2 go into 9? And you can just do division in your calculator, 9 over 2. So dividing 9 by 2. That whole number is going to be our whole number. So 9 divided by 2 is going to be 4.5. So 4 is going to be my whole number. What we have here now is we have to decide what to do with the rest of this. So 4 times 2 is 8. How much short are we? We have one kind of left over, one remainder. So the remainder is going to go on top. I don't know why there's a step for it. All right, so remainder on top, so we get a 1, and then the bottom's going to stay the same. If you look in your book, I think they even pull out like the old school division bar. Like, remember this. Oh, where'd that just go? Bless you. So the 9, like divided by 2, they do it this way, and a 2 goes into 9. How many times do you guys want to do? You know, it kind of depends here. So all these kind of come from that as well. So that's another way to do it. So what I'd suggest with this 73 over 4 is I would divide 73 by 4. What'd you guys get? 73 divided by 4. 18 point something. So 18 is our whole number. I know the bottom's going to be a 4. So there's a couple of ways to do this. You could do 18 times 4 and see how close we get to 78. What's 18 times? 72. So we're 1 away. Now you might know what that decimal is. It's like 18.25. You might just know that's a 4th, kind of using your own reasoning to determine how to get that other piece. So this is kind of our remainder, the leftovers. And then you could always go back and check. You could kind of convert back and double check that is 18 times 4 plus 1, is that going to be that 73? All right, questions there? All right, so let's flip the page. We'll do a few more little parts here and then we'll take over. Now simplifying, I think, is something most of your calculators will do for you. If you write these fractions, 36 over 45 or 45 over 66, I think your calculator would do it for you. So it's okay to use your calculator. Like, I'm just warning you, like that's perfectly fine to type that in. So you do 36 over 45. So again, use that ABC button. I think it simplifies it for you.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. Yeah. So use that button again and kind of just simplify that. I think if you divide 36 by 45, most of your calculators will give you a decimal. But if you use the fraction button, it kind of tells you to stay kind of in that fraction mode and tries to help you. Now, so you're simplifying that, so you guys get 4/5. How do we get that though? Simplifying is not too bad. What do you need to do? Yeah, you're dividing them by the biggest number possible that both can be divided by. So you're dividing by like a greatest common factor. So you can divide the top and bottom by a greatest common factor. Oh gosh.
Hey! Don't get this on you.
That's
I'm
rude.
sorry. Didn't mean it.
Now we know what the t-shirt says.
Well, maybe that's not the final one.
That's awesome. I'm gonna keep that printed in my mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, what just happened there? I'm all frazzled. Divide the top and bottom by a GCF, which is the greatest common factor. So in this case, we can divide them both by 9. If you don't need to do that, if your calculator is capable of doing that for you, I'm perfectly fine with that. But something like that, I don't know that I take the time to punch that into my calculator. I look at 36 and 45, I see I can divide them both by 9. I would just do that, but that's my comfort level with math. Same thing with 48 and 66. I know they're both divisible by 6, so I probably would just divide them instead of actually putting that into my calculator. My calculator is all the way over there, I'm just going to divide it. Now I said 8. That's the way the day is going. Divide by 6. So this ends up being 8 over 11. Or your calculator just does it for you, that's fine. Again, not taking your calculator away, but you need to know how to use your calculator like effectively. Because if you do that wrong and you give me a decimal, I'm not going to give you much for that. If you tell me what the decimal equivalent is, that's not what I'm asking for in this case. All right. Now, these are just rules I think are good to know. These aren't things I'm going to test you on, but I don't think it's like necessary to have to just be comfortable, especially with these. Now, if you look in your book, which you guys don't actually have now that I say that, just kidding, don't look in your book. If you look online, divisibility rules, I think there's like 10 of them, maybe 9, of different rules that you could know. These are the 3 that I think are most important. The other ones are kind of nice to know, but they're kind of like, almost like, why don't you just try dividing it? There's like, add all the numbers together, and if that's divisible by, like it's this really long rule. 2, 5, and 10 are really easy to tell. How do I know if a number is divisible by 2? Yep, even number. So an even number is automatically divisible by 2. The reason why this is helpful is if I'm simplifying fractions. Knowing that I'm trying to divide something by 2 because it's even, so the number is even. So 2, 4, 6, 8, all those numbers are divisible by 2. An even number. There is a rule for 3, there's a rule for 4. Both of them are kind of strange. The rule for 3 is kind of interesting, I'll talk to you about that in a second, but it's not something I think you have to memorize. Anyone know the rule for 5? How do I know if something's divisible by 5? What's that? What is? There's a really probably short way to say it.
I believe it has to end in a 0 or a 5.
Yeah, so I mean you were saying the same thing, but all it has to do is end in a 0 or 5. I know automatically those are divisible by 5. Ends in 0 or 5. So for instance, 20, 25, like anything that ends in a 0 or 5, the first number doesn't matter. And how about 10? Divisible by 10? Yep.
Ends in 0.
Ends in 0. It's only that. These are just ones I think you should know at this point or be comfortable with that. I know that those can be divided by 10. I can break that up evenly among 10 people, among 5 people, whatever it happens to be. So looking at a number like 210, is it divisible by 5? I should just be able to say yes, because it ends in a 0. So yes it is, because it ends in that 0. Now if you actually wanted to divide that, it should be a whole number answer. Now 3. 471. I'll teach you guys the rule, but this is one that is not necessary. It's kind of a goofy one, but at the same time, if I don't know, what's a way to check? Calculator, just divide it. Is 471 divisible by 3? Yeah, it's a nice whole number answer, so it is, so it's yes. But I'll tell you guys the trick on this one. This is kind of like, this is the start of the weird tricks that come with this. You don't have to know this. If I add these together, and this is like one of those things you're like, really, someone did this? 4 plus 7 plus 1 is 12. If that number is divisible by 3, the whole thing's divisible by 3.
And how do we know it's correct for every number?
Someone sat in a room and no, they did some sort of like hocus pocus math and figured it out.
They did some big brain.
So, yeah, but the fact that someone even figured that out, like, and that's the most normal of the other rules, like, they get kind of goofy, like, so, we don't need to worry about that, but divide in your calculator. So yes, 471 divided in my calculator, works out to be a nice number, just divide it, it's fine, no, no stress. You don't have to feel like you have to do something fancy for me.
But whenever you do that, you feel like sign afterwards.
All right, questions? All right, we're gonna take a little break here. What do we think? You guys want to do? Because yesterday we went outside, right?